The Deep South's oldest rivalry. Do the Auburn Tigers have enough to make it interesting against what everybody believes is either the best or second best team in the nation? We are talking Auburn football coming off a big comeback in Death Valley. We got Michael Gittens on the line. Also, Caesar Walker from the War Report. They've been on here a number of times, always deliver for us. So please check out their work on the War Report. Gentlemen, how we doing tonight?
Wow, well, it's Georgia weekend, so that usually means obnoxious Georgia fans on my Twitter and in our comment section on YouTube. But we're doing okay. I think we're ready for this one. We're definitely ready for this one.
So the typical obnoxious Georgia fan, what are they, sticking out their, bowing out their chest, beating their chest about?
Well, listen, they got a lot to beat their chest about this year. Actually, I think this should be their year. Kirby has got to deliver for them this year, I think. Or, again, I'm not sure the seat gets hot for him, but, I think that the fan base starts to get a little impatient. They've got probably the best defense in the country so far through, the first 5 games here. They've got playmakers at every position. And when we broke down their defense, it was hard to find a crack in anything they do defensively. I mean, they're solid. They're solid against the run. They're solid against the pass. Their assignment sound. They're well coached, and they're very physical at the point of attack. So they've got a good team. It's going to be a tall task for Auburn on Saturday.
I'm going to use a different term than solid. I'm going to say devastating. I think they the Clemson game. I watched the entire game. I watched the entire Arkansas game until it got just ridiculously out of hand, and they just kind of wreck game plans. They just wreck the offense. They push guards and tackles into the backfield, just kind of ruin plays that don't even get a chance to be developed. So they have been dominant for the most part. So looking at the Auburn team, the last time we left U2 was just a couple days prior to the Penn State game. So since then, it's been a trip to Happy Valley. Really good football game there. Georgia State, that was a tight one. And then, of course, getting outplayed by LSU before a big comeback in the fourth quarter. So, Caesar, how do you feel about the progression of the team, both sides of the ball?
Well, I think it's just been a work in progress. Different new coaches on both sides of the ball. And particularly starting with the secondary, it's been kind of a new philosophy or a different approach to how they play the pass. And Auburn, under the previous administration, the previous coaching staff, just played press man a lot. And so what these guys are learning to do is actually incorporate multiple coverages as part of their game plan, learning how to play in space. Learning how to employ different looks on one side of the field. And so what we're seeing has been kind of a work in progress. We've given up a lot more pass yards than we're accustomed to, and the fans have been kind of grumbling as a result of that. But I saw one of the things that has impressed me has been our ability to adjust at the half. And we saw that against LSU, which was very encouraging. They didn't get a whole lot through the air in the second half of that game. And so we already know how good Auburn's run defense is. Auburn is one of the tops in the nation in terms of run defense. And outside of a bad first half against Georgia State, in which our leader, Zacoby McClain, was out due to a targeting call from the previous game, Auburn has been pretty much devastating as well against the run, against opposing teams. And so the question has been, can Auburn kind of figure some things out with the back four in terms of how they want to play the passing game? As it pertains to the offense is still a bit of a work in progress because we saw something against LSU that we haven't really seen. Auburn actually relied on Bo's athleticism. And up until the LSU game, Bo had been coached to pretty much stay in the pocket and go through his progressions, kind of be a pro-style quarterback. And much like our offensive line, Bo he is who he is at this point. So you basically tailor what you want to do around his skill set. And Bo went out and won the game against LSU. He made some big time plays, and advanced statistics were actually pretty kind to him as a result of that. So I think this coaching staff is still learning the guys on their team and who can do what. And so it's been kind of a work in progress up until this point on both sides of the football.
Got to say, Michael, as you two know better than I do, that Bo Nix has been a center of controversy and discussion ever since he stepped on campus. So where do we stand right now with Bo Nix after that performance in the second half against LSU?
I don't. At the risk of sounding dismissive against this Georgia defense, I don't think it really matters, right? Like, what he did against LSU was heroic. I thought that he kind of bailed the coaches out from what was a mediocre game plan. But run around and throw it is not going to work against this defense this week. So they're going to have to come up with something a little bit more scripted. There's going to have to be more timing involved. And he's going to have to go through his progressions a little faster. LSU was leading the conference in sacks going into that game. And it was, make no mistake, the plan was always go after Bo and make him win the game. And he did that, right? But they also, have the worst pass defense in our league as well, too, by a long shot. So that's not what we're facing the antithesis of that this week, where again, they have the ability from a defensive line standpoint to get after Bo, but they've got the conference's best pass defense backing them up. So even if he escapes, right, he's going to have to make really smart decisions with the football. So Bo's charge will be keep the ball out of harm's way, and you can't try to win the game on every play. Right. You can't. Beating Georgia is going to be a whole team effort. It is. So a lot of people, when you're the quarterback, Mark, you get a lot of praise when you win, and you take a disproportionate amount of blame when you lose. So everybody just needs to understand whether we win or lose this game will not be entirely on Bo Nix, right? Now, Caesar referenced our run defense. The first thing that we're going to have to do is our defense is going to have to help Bo win the field position battle. Give him some short fields to work with. I do not expect, if we have to drive the field 90 yards at a time, that we're going to have a very fun time on Saturday. So give him some short fields to work with. We're going to have to create turnovers. Now, when you look at Georgia's offense, there's not a lot. Again, you're looking for cracks. And the only crack I can see is that JT Daniels is probably not going to play in this one. And if you can get to Stetson Bennett, he's like 16% completion percentage when under pressure. The problem is getting to him because their offensive line is solid. They all grade out, and we're going to have to do some exotic blitzes, some stunts, some things to get to Stetson Bennett and force him to try to win. You got to take away their run game. If you're going to let them grind it out on the ground, you got no shot. Now, Stetson, they've changed the game plan significantly when Stetson is in the game. They will not let him throw more than 15. He hasn't thrown more than 15 times in any game this season, right? I think he was 7 for 11 against Arkansas. They were content to just grind it out on the ground. And Auburn has got to force them to do something else. And then conversely, Bo has to protect the football. He's got to he's going to have to complete some passes downfield. And he's going to have to complete enough passes to get their rush defense to back up just a little bit so our backs have some space to operate. At the linebacker position, Georgia is solid. D-line, again, hard to see any cracks there. Again, the short passing game will help loosen the line up a little bit. If we can get some throws on rhythm, hit some slants, work the middle of the field, and then stretch them vertically here, that just enough to make them respect it. And then our backs can come in. It's going to take a balanced, concerted team effort, so I know everybody wants to talk about Bo, but this can't be all on Bo. This has to be a team win. This has to be a team win against Georgia. So, Bo's part is complete enough passes, to keep the defense honest and protect the football. That's Bo's part in this.
You guys have come to the right place to talk about the entire personnel groupings and the whole team. We don't focus just on the quarterback. We understand that here.
Yep.
The quarterback is the most important position in the field, but sure, I still believe that the most important position unit as a whole is the offensive line for most teams.
Agreed.
And especially in this league, because just about everybody's got a terror or two, or if it's Georgia, 5 or 6 along the front 7, they can get after your quarterback and just make life miserable.
Yeah, agreed. I think too, if you're Auburn, like I said, you left the LSU game still with some questions about what are we working with here. One of the things that Auburn has to get back to, if they're going to give themselves any type of chance in this game, if you're going to help Bo Nix out, you got to get back to running the football. Against LSU, Auburn rushed for 173 yards total, and Bo accounted for 74 of those yards. Against Georgia State, Auburn rushed for 166 yards. And those defenses pale in comparison to the defense we're going to see this Saturday. And against a dominant defense, we've learned watching Arkansas, you can't be one-dimensional. You have to be able to break down those defenses by being able to do both, pass the ball and run the ball, right? So for Auburn, they gotta have to be able to get back to running the football and also giving Bo Nix an opportunity, because they're focused on the run. Give them some opportunities to make some passes downfield to keep the defense honest. That's pretty much Auburn's game plan. Don't know how. That's easier said than done. It's easy to say that on your show, Mark, but that's what they're going to have to do. And if Georgia is disciplined defensively, Auburn has to be disciplined offensively in terms of how they plan to attack them. And so you don't want to give Bo the ball and say, hey, go win it for us like you did against LSU. You don't want to do, not against this defense. It worked last week, but not against this defense. So you need to see guys like Jarquez Hunter, guys like Tank Bigsby. Those guys get opportunities. Even Shivers coming out of the backfield. He was major for us in the passing game out of the backfield. So getting those guys involved, getting touches spread around the field for our guys, that's going to be very important against a Georgia defense that can defend east, west, north, south. You're going to have to figure out a way, and it's on the coaching staff to find those weaknesses. Sure, no one has found those weaknesses through 5 weeks, but you get paid the big bucks to find those weaknesses and help your quarterback make plays comfortably.
Yeah, I echo that. Listen, if Auburn's got a chance, it's going to be it's because our coaches are going to out scheme Georgia's coaches, right? Last week at LSU, players won the game. Players went out and made plays. This week, against a team where you're pretty much overmatched at almost every position, coaches have to scheme the win and put the players in the best position to make plays to help them win the game. That's what's got to happen this week for sure.
Yeah, you answered my next question, because I don't know your personnel as well as you do by any stretch of the imagination, but I watched the games and I saw the entire Penn State game. I watched the cut down version of the Georgia State game. I got the other one on DVR against LSU. So I wasn't coming up with any matchups that favor Auburn, but I wanted to hear from you guys to see if there were any. And certainly what you say about Bo Nix, he's a really good athlete. There's no question about that, but there's probably 3 or 4 dudes on the Georgia defense that are better athletes. And there's going to be 4 or 5 of them chasing him all the time. So you can't rely on that all night. There's no question about that. He might break free for 12 or 15 yards once in a while, but you can't live on that.
Right. I think the matchup to watch is going to be Zacoby McClain versus anybody trying to stop him from making the tackle. Zacoby is the best tackler in the country by a long shot. So, last year he led the country in total tackles made, but he also was the most efficient tackler in the country. And so far this year, that holds true in that, the most tackles made versus tackles attempted. So, he is the key to stopping Georgia's running game or just slowing them down enough to make Stetson Bennett have to throw the ball. Now, what does that mean? During Georgia State, we saw what that one guy meant to our defense. He was suspended for the first half of Georgia State because of the targeting call against Penn State the week before. Georgia State ran at will on us. After the half, they could do nothing after Zacoby came off suspension, right? Now, we have another linebacker that's been out for a couple games, and Owen Papo, who was the second best player on this defense. Bryan Harsin was non-committal about whether Owen would play in this game, but if they get him back, this game is going to end up being strength on strength, Mark, right? So the strength of Georgia's offense is their run offense.
Yeah.
The strength of Auburn's defense is their run defense. And conversely, the strength of Auburn's offense is our run offense, right? And their whole defense is good, but their run defense is particularly prolific. So, what's got to give there, right? Like, something's got to give there. And it's going to be Georgia's passing game versus Auburn's passing game. So if you're talking about favorable matchups, they're not a whole lot for Auburn, but they're not going to be for most teams this year against this Georgia defense unless they suffer a rash of injuries somehow. These guys are as good a unit as I've seen defensively in our league in quite some time. They're big, they're nasty. Again, their assignment sound, which is really important because you can be athletic, but always out of position, therefore not in a position to make plays. They have not shown any of that this year. And when you look at their Pro Football Focus scores, man, they all grade out like super high. So, they pass the eye test, they pass the stat test. You just got to out scheme them here, and you've got to use the athlete. Auburn has athletes. The cupboards aren't bare at Auburn. I know, Bryan Harsin is a first-year head coach, but there was a lot of talent left for him on this team, particularly defensively and at linebacker. Our former linebacker coach, Travis Williams, did a great job with that group and left them in great shape. And he's just got to take that, and they've got to, get those guys around the ball making plays. Auburn's got to find a way to force some turnovers. Georgia has a curious situation going on at running back. Against Arkansas, like 4 different guys had 12 or more carries. So, I'm looking at their backfield and I'm just thinking, who's the guy back there? Paul Mahari from Rivals came on our show last night and just said, they've not really given any guy a chance to get any momentum in that backfield. So, maybe there's something there for Auburn to exploit, if they are not committed to a guy in the backfield. And they underestimate our rush defense, it may be hard for them to get rhythm going on the ground. I think that this rush defense for Auburn will be surprising to a lot of Georgia fans. We're really good against the run, but their offensive line is really good. So again, strength on strength, somebody's got to win. We'll see what happens, but it'll definitely be interesting to watch.
So I noticed the same thing about the Georgia rushing attack, and it's not a situation in which, for the most part, like they've got veteran guys at the running back position that have held it down, and they want to honor their tenure, and then they got a couple of studs coming in, and they don't want to go the wrong direction there and overplay them or anything like that. Basically, they're all high 4 and 5-star guys, but I think 4 guys doesn't seem to be the right recipe for most teams. You want to be in that 2, maybe you give a third guy some carries. But you want to get those guys in a rhythm a little bit and get them lathered up to a certain extent. And the thing about Stetson Bennett, the last time we saw him on the field with comparable talent on the other side of the football was in Tuscaloosa last year. And he had a really good first half, and Georgia was within striking distance. They stayed within a score. And then for some odd reason, they put the ball in his hands, like way too much, I thought, in the second half. And suddenly a 27-24 game with like 7-8 minutes left in the game became a blowout because he's just not the guy you want throwing the ball 40 times. So I'm going to give you a quick solution to that, but it, like Caesar had said earlier, it's much easier to sit here and say it than do it, and that's not get down 21-0 like Arkansas did, to where Stetson Bennett doesn't have to throw the ball anymore the rest of the game. To keep it close, to hopefully, chase him around a little bit, make him feel a little pressure, especially on the road. This team hasn't been on the road in a hostile environment for quite some time. And I think I said last year, I meant 2 years ago against, no, that was last year's game. That was last year's game against Alabama. Yeah. So that's obviously in your advantage. I don't know how much, but it's one of the tougher places to play in college football.
Yeah, of course, Auburn family shows up for these big games. It's a rivalry week against Georgia, so we usually show up and are loud for that game. But I really do think it's going to be the front 7 that's going to make a difference in terms of making Georgia can pass the ball, and then, not to be disrespectful to Stetson Bennett in their passing, and they can throw the ball when needed. I saw a beautiful pass that Stetson made against Arkansas. I believe it was a wheel route to a guy. He can definitely put the ball where it needs to be.
Yep.
And so they can throw the ball, but they're comfortable when they're running the ball and taking the pressure off of Stetson Bennett. So the key to this game for both teams, whoever is more comfortable doing the thing that they would like to do is going to win this game. And if you're Auburn, you want to take away Georgia's comfort zone, which is handing the ball off to their guys and taking the pressure off Stetson Bennett. If those guys aren't able to get the yards and able to push our defensive line around and the front seven around to where Stetson now has to throw a little bit more than what he's accustomed to, that's where Auburn wants him. On the other hand, that's what you want if you're Georgia as well for Auburn. So whoever gets a chance to do what they're more comfortable doing is going to have a better shot at this game. If Auburn can get Stetson Bennett throwing anywhere around 30 times in this game, this is going to be a close game, in my opinion, because Georgia's not able to run the ball as they're accustomed to, or at least how they were against Arkansas. And that makes for a tighter game.
How big was the LSU game for Bryan Harsin? Because Auburn goes to Penn State. I came away from that game not thinking any differently about either team. I thought it was certainly competitive down to the wire, where I could easily be told, hey, if this game was played at Auburn tonight, they win. You know, I didn't come away thinking, oh, Penn State's decidedly better than Auburn or anything like that. At the same time, I thought it was a bit ridiculous following the Georgia State game. And I got a question to ask you about that real quick as well. I'm hearing all sorts of comments. You know, Bryan Harsin's at the time 4 games into his tenure, and I'm hearing ridiculous people out there talking about he's not the right guy for this program, and it's pretty obvious, and people are already disgruntled.
Yeah, that's very Auburn. Here's the thing, right? So going back to what you were saying about Penn State, right? They went into Penn State. They were competitive. They were highly competitive that game. And, you know, the ball bounces, you know, I think they learned some things about their team during that game. Georgia State, again, was curious. I think what we found out during Georgia State was defensively, we're just not as deep as, you know, we hoped we were defensively, with Zacoby McClain and Owen Papple being out. So our best 2 players on defense are out, and we can't stop the run at all. Unfortunately, our quarterback picked that game to have his worst game of the season. So they pulled him in the 4th quarter. Now, you talk about somebody being the right guy for the job. You know, Bryan Harsin did the unthinkable in that game and pulled Bo Nix late in the 3rd quarter. Our last coach would have gone down with him. As a matter of fact, he did go down with him. He bet his career on him. And now he's at UCF doing whatever he's doing in that program. So the idea here that Bryan Harsin is not the right guy, I think it was disproven during the Georgia State game, right? He pulled Bo Nix. And after that game, a lot of people were calling for TJ Finley to start. He didn't overreact to that either, right? And they put what they thought was the best quarterback on the field for LSU. Now, in hindsight, I was certainly in the camp that thought that TJ Finley at least earned the right to start that LSU game. But based on how LSU attacked us defensively, we needed somebody who could move and get away from that. So you got to give Bryan Harsin at least that credit, right? Like he came in saying that the best players would play, that seniority didn't matter. And as his tenure at Auburn started, it felt like they were prioritizing experience over talent. And now they're starting to get some of that talent on the field as they evaluate in real time. So, you know, I think that you'll see this team evolve even more this season under this staff. You know, they've got to do their own evaluations. They have to figure out what they have. You know, we've got to trust the coaching staff that, you know, again, they're seeing these guys in practice every day. And they're trying to make the best decision about who's going to give us the best chance to win at every position, not just quarterback. Right. So we fired our wide receiver coach. I don't know if you followed that, Mark, but we fired our wide receiver coach.
I heard it.
Yeah. I mean, this group of wide receivers is on well, I shouldn't say it's not all receivers, but, you know, Auburn as a team we're on pace to double the amount of drops we had in 2020. So something he felt like had to be done there. So he made that choice. A lot of people criticized it, but, you know, I mean, the man's making moves. I think that he's done, you know, just getting us to this point 4-1 against Georgia is an accomplishment. And then ending a 21-year drought at LSU. That win was huge for him. Now, in terms of the team that he beat, this was the one that he needed to beat. Like, he needed to beat this LSU team. And there was an opportunity there for him, the best opportunity we've had at LSU in a while to go down there and get the win. But he got it, so you have to give him credit for that. He went down there and he got it. Now, albeit in dramatic fashion, he still got it, and the W still counts in the record books, no matter how close it was or what it looked like. So going into Georgia, for Auburn to get any kind of victory out of this, you have to look competent. You have to look competent. You have to have a good game plan against Georgia, and you just got to show you can't get run off the field by them. You have to show that you belong. How people kind of felt after Penn State. After Penn State, a lot of Penn State fans came to our stream and said, hey, listen, respect. You guys played a tough game. You did a lot better in that whiteout environment than I thought you would. That's credit to the coaches in the preparation. So now you're in your own house, and you got big bad Georgia coming to knock down your door. And they're coming with bad intentions. They want to hurt you. They want to run up the score. They want to turn Jordan Hare into the home field advantage for them. And you just can't let them. You can't let them. The team has to show some fight. They have to show some pride. And I think that if they can put forth the requisite amount of effort to just not get pushed around in this game, it's a win for Bryan Harsin. There's a lot of big recruits are going to be at this game too. So you need to show that you can field a competitive team because these guys want to compete with the likes of Georgia and Alabama year in and year out. So it's got to be competitive this week. I think Bryan Harsin is the guy for that.
And to echo that point, Harsin's been here before, much through his career. He knows what it's like in big games to be on the side where you have the not so much inferior athletes, but you're playing someone with the superior athletes. You're playing against an Oklahoma. You're playing against some of these bigger schools. So you have to be prepared. You have to have a solid game plan. You have to out scheme the competition to even be in the game. And so this isn't foreign territory for him. So I expect him to rely on his experience being in games such as this to put a competent product on the field. Win or lose what happens to Auburn, we at least will be proud of the fact that we have a coach who in a big game knows how to have his guys ready.
Yeah, they could be 2-3, but to be fair, they could be 5-0. So they're probably right where they should be.
Yeah.
Great stuff from these guys. I call on them anytime I want to talk Auburn football. We got Michael Gittins here from the War Report, Caesar Walker as well from the War Report. Check them out right here on YouTube. Guys, enjoy the game. Hopefully it's a good one, wire to wire.
Yeah, we made our picks, Mark. Unfortunately, none of us picked the home team in this one. I'm happy to eat crow on this one. If for some reason Auburn pulls out the win, if Bo puts on the Superman cape again for a second week straight, and if our run defense can force Georgia to be one-dimensional offensively, all tall tasks, but definitely not impossible. So, they're going to need some help from Georgia, I think, in this one, but it should be a good game, regardless on Saturday.